the word was the before culture and the after culture.
Yeah, and then what exists in the middle, for what reason?
Culture, obviously. It's all culture. That's the question and the problem. So, the culture. So, and let's call the culture the covering. Beside the point.
Yeah, and why did you bring it up? Why the before and why the after? What significance does that have?
You don't remember?
Oh, I do, but nobody else was there. Talking about the significance of being beyond culture, prior to past culture.
We were talking about drums. Drums before culture, drums after culture. Drums throughout all culture too. But then there are drums before culture and there are drums after culture. Yeah.
Yeah. What does it mean? What do drums mean before culture and after culture? Because we know examples of what they mean within culture.
Well, they certainly don't mean drums. Drums represent who? Before culture, who after culture. So, drums represent what? Before culture, education, and after. So education has become useless. Reverting back to childhood storytelling, there was only drums here. In the blood, it's all about the drums. It was something that this child, this baby, needed to hear. So it found its way to the radio and parked itself right by the radio to hear the drums. I recall that vividly. The message of the drums. So it shouldn't be any real question about why. The drums before culture. And now we're speaking about innocence. And drums as innocence. And drums after culture. Drums as dying, death, and transcendence.
And because of or what did the early intuitive connection to drums do for you as a musician?
It didn't do, and it wasn't as a musician, just as a being, as a baby. I remember my days with the Hare Krishnas as part of my research into their music. And the babies would come out, 2 years old, or those who could walk would come out, and they would commence the singing. So it was more a matter of what they've heard and what they feel, and that's what they were being. Mantra, chant, the songs of devotion towards the Lord as Krishna and Radha, male and female, deities of, the reality of life, the divine deities, the yin and the yang, the inhalation and the exhalation, the receiving and the giving. And so here we're talking about from the gene pool, the receiving of messaging, which was then cultural drums, to the baby, who during the first 2 years, according to my mother, was feeding back that without self, so to speak, right? So self-identity, it was just happening, just breathing. So because what we are is sound to begin with. We are sound, vibration to begin with. We're living. So it's not education. It's not even culture. Then it is cultured, right, through the blood. So then it's blood. See, and that helps to know, what we're talking about. This is blood culture now, right? So we say some of it is conscious, very little at the beginning. A lot of it is unconscious, which means it's very special at the beginning. Mm-hmm. Fair question, but they're only drums. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's only drums. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Native intelligence. It's only drums. Yeah. Translated into human terms and intellectual terms, it's only the heartbeat. Pulse. There's only life then. Mm. And what your relationship as a soul is to that pulse, the living pulse, is a mystery. To you. Mm. But to others it's not. It is life as it is. It is life of itself. No. It's living. So drumming is not just beats that you hear. It's not just this. It's what you see, what you smell, what you taste, what you feel, and you touch. It's all the same thing. See, but then it becomes a matter of what level, of what pattern of drumming are we talking about? Are we talking about geo vibrations? A patterning of rhythms? Are we talking about mercurial patterns of rhythms relative to the existence of its presence as it relates to the sun's distance, approximation? Vibrational rate, tone, rhythm, pulse, presence. Rock. Hard to hear rock. Send the scientific bloodhounds to it, they'll see something in it, they'll start seeing history in it, life. See, was and could be. Rock as tape. See, body as tape. Of what message? What kind of music? Yeah. Good question. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So drumming is the expression, effect of all prior levels of primordial, say, forms of pulse to the atomic, subatomic, super essence, what we call the etheric spirit, for lack of a better word, giving some kind of reality to the context of what is called space. Spiritual space, etheric space, pulse, the livingness of the universe, the big breath, Brahma, as it's called in India. Brahma. Drums.
So, from that very grand scale...
So we are Brahma. We are Brahmas, little Brahmas, right? And that means that we are consistent with the cause and effect of the universe. Brahma, right, and Shakti. The energy of it. We're the impulse of it and the energy of it. We are the received, reality of it, the energy, we have received it. We inhale it and we exhale it. So we are the medium. We are the channels of Brahma, from a cosmic sense. So the drums are well established, say, way before we ever came into being, way before the universe has shown up. Forget about the 4 to 7 years of when Earth showed up as an effect of the solar system existing as it was at that time. And the same goes for the solar source as an effect of what was created to enable it to manifest as well. All pulse to pulse to pulse to infinite pulse. Original pulse. Drum. It's all drums.
And from this sort of grand expression of drums, what gives significance to the small physical drums with a resonating head on a shell?
That depends on the drummer in that case. We have been drummed out of the womb, right? Rhythm, sex, intercourse, drumming, boom, 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 right? 2 heartbeats, drumming, right? To create through pleasure another being, deliberately or accidentally, however, it happens, whatever the case may be. Right. But this is all part of the continuum of the drumming. So when you drum from what level of your awareness of being Brahma as source or Brahma as effect? Before culture, the universe. And then you have culture, and then after the culture you have the universe again. Before culture, warrior. Then culture, after culture, warrior. Before culture, spirit. After culture, spirit. So before is this, culture. After culture, what's that mean? Baby's born, drum data. Drum, in this case, in this sense, means accumulated data from the impulse of Brahma. Original creative impulse down the line to source. Some would say, well, what's the God point of the whole thing? Yeah. So in the baby, you see the history is there. It's right there. It's a proof that it even happened and it's happening. You see it proof. And the innocence and purity, the pure potential of the human being in infant form. Yeah. Embryonically speaking even. See? Manifesting. Say, from the zero part of the universe then to the physical part, incarnate part of the universe, manifest as a creative, thus complete being, another Brahma, right, Lord of the universe, so to speak, right, by way of drum power, right. Pulse, life, drum. What is the drum? Huh? Who is the drummer? Brahma. The key to the universe is how you use time, pulse, life force. How you use it. A so-called musical drummer, right, dabbles in the potential of what that is. They do it for material reasons, social reasons, maybe academic reasons, like music is an academic sort of game, sport, process. preoccupation, way of life. But what about before? After? Maybe what about its origin? School? No, there's no schools. When did schools start to show up in the history of the earth? A couple of seconds ago. Maybe. Yeah. So who's being what it is? Yeah. Who's the native who's awakened to being what it is to help other people find that out for themselves? Yeah. Otherwise, it's like no before culture. It's only culture. And the bubble culture is, or the casket culture is. And there's no after it. It's inconceivable that there's more than what appears. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So there's native and then there's super native. There's, well, it's called black music, soul music, and then there's super soul music, super black music. I would call that colorless, pure soul music. Has no beginning, no end. Doesn't have a planet. It's the heart soul of the universe, of all colors and no color at the same time. So the natives seem to have an advantage. And for people who have been with the natives, let's say like Jung, to learn from the medicine people there, they have a whole different level of knowledge without going to school, because they let nature teach them that they are then channels of nature. They learn it directly. So, therefore the natives, the dark skins, those people who live in the sun, exposed to the elements. Not a problem. Not better or worse, but there's something characteristic of that. So, natural, more natural. Not intellectually speaking, but more vitally natural. Drumming. Basic drum.
And you mentioned there was a quality of the most native
ultra native,
drumming,
super native.
that is,
it's the spiritual. Non-cultural, spiritual. That would more or less pertain to realization itself and not thought, intellect, or mind, particularly. It's like what I have called tree to grass, earth to moon, to sun, to solar system, to galaxy, to universe, to heart, to is. If you just learn about the drums, you learn about nothing. But if you learn about what the drums mean, spiritually, or natively speaking, rather than getting it from an education where you just drum as a robot drums, you learn and you play like a classical musician may, but there's no necessarily native, let's say, connection with the primordial. Why is there no connection, even if you're playing drums, with the primordial, if you're an educated drummer? Why? When it's so obvious, it is primordially connected, but that doesn't come up. There's no evidence of primordial intelligence in the process. Drummers are just drummers. Yeah.
Yeah, being distracted by the mind.
Culture. The veiling, the masking, culture, the mask. Maybe it's the self. Look at me, self, I know. Programming. Self-limitation programming. when there is no self to limit, except in society and in cultural context. So, drumming.
What's the significance as a drummer of either playing time or playing outside of or free from time?
A drummer is all of that, but every human being is all of that as well. So our nature is to be sleep and conscious. Our nature is to be the time of consciousness and the unconsciousness that we call sleep. So every human being is that. Whether you drum or not doesn't make a difference. The idea is that if you're a drummer, you want to be able to find out what its relationship is to your heart and how your drumming serves the purposes of your heart as an organ, right, in terms of your health, and then as something deeper than that and more profound than that. And that would be in terms of your potential as a spiritually awakening or developing being. As creative musicians, or spiritual musicians, let's just use that term right now, in this age, the spiritual musician, whatever that means. We would hope that it means getting beyond the mask of society, see, the programming of culture, that you have to believe you are in order to do well, see, to make it, so to speak, because you have the credentials. That means you've conformed to the game well enough to have the credentials to be adequate or, let's say, deserving of the occupation. So as musicians, we have to see that music has nothing to do with that, actually. And then what is music? If it's not just an orchestra, if it's not just a school of training, then what is music? Well, music is life. It's your breathing. It's your emotions, as well as your stream of thought. That is the music. Now, if you have a musical ear, I don't mean one of perfect pitch, which means memory, but something more creative, which means a presence beyond time. Not the perfect pitch bound to time, but the no pitch bound to the present moment. You have that, and you can translate what you know, you perceive as your live stream into music, if you can imagine it. So I don't want to have to beat a dead horse here, so to speak. Not that any horses are dead, actually. But the elders that would call us children into the circle space and bring us back to the, let's say, the idea of the spiritual as most important in life. They were drumming it into us. Hence the word drumming, outside of the field of music and material drumming. Figure of speech, drumming. Yeah. Brahma. Drumming, Guru. Drumming, Brahma. Gone, Brahma. No Brahma, Brahma less. Drumming. It's all drumming.